we're here gathered to learn some more about differentiate your lessons with BookWidgets. Normally, you're also an advanced BookWidgets user already. This means that you can already create a BookWidgets exercise, share it with your students, and also review and grade the work. Okay. Just one slide on the theory of differentiation, just to a quick reminder what really is differentiation. Differentiation refers to the application of differences in instruction, processing, and learning time within a group of class, within a group or class of students based on, among other things, their performance, mastery level, learning preference, interest, and motivation and pace. And that's actually it for the theory. I guess normally you quite know what differentiation is. And to do this with BookWidgets, we kind of divided it into 4 different ways of differentiating. The first one will be about differentiating with BookWidgets on skill level and performance data. We'll be using the learning needs of our students to take a look at that and what kind of settings there are in BookWidgets to provide to those learning needs. You can also differentiate on pace, and you can take a look at the learning preferences and use BookWidgets to offer exercises, to provide exercises that aren't just a quiz or a worksheet, but that go much further than that. So let's start with differentiating on skill level and performance. I have no idea, of course, if you're very advanced or just know the worksheet or the quiz, but this actually is an exit ticket, and I will show you how you can use it to differentiate on the skill level or on the performance of your students. So in this case, an exit ticket, you're using this at the end of a lesson to quickly gauge your students' understanding and to see if they understood your lesson correctly. I have this widget link right here. And it's actually just a question. The first question will always be the answer with an emoji. So you can change a question, but your students will always have to answer with this emoji. And in this case, it's just that you understand today's lesson, so they can quickly enter this. And then the next question will be, do you still have some questions about today's lesson? This, of course, a question you can change again. The answer option, which is an open answer, will stay like this. Then your students can just submit it, and you can take a look at the answers of your students and use this information to, in your next lesson, to maybe group students together that didn't understand your lesson and give new instructions, and that way you are differentiating. This widget, the exit slip widget, is really, really easy to create. It just 2 questions. So the only thing you have to do is maybe change the first question, and on the second, you can also change the question and maybe add an image. And that's it. Of course, there are much more ways to create exit tickets. So it's just not this easy widget, but you can do way more with it with BookWidgets as well. So you can use other widgets to create exit tickets. So here's a group link. When you click on it, you will be guided to a BookWidgets group. So it's a group within BookWidgets with a folder full with BookWidgets exit tickets that we created for you. They're already in English. So here you go. These are 60 exit tickets ready for you to use, ready-made. You can just make a duplicate of this widget and then share it with your own students. I will show you some examples here. So I have this fun thought bubble exercise. So I click on show. And this is actually a worksheet with an annotate picture question type. So there's a picture in the background, and I've put a field on the picture, and the field is invisible. So students can start entering the answer. So what is the main idea of the text? I am gauging my students' understanding, seeing if they really understood the text. So I can make sure that the next time, the next lesson, I take a look at it and see if I can guide them through, if I have to explain something more or not. There are much more other things. The popcorn one is also a fun one. So here what pops into your head, this is a whiteboard widget. And in this whiteboard widget, students have the tools to start drawing, so they can choose a color, they can draw, they can just draw anything on it. If they have iPads or iPhones or just smartphones, it's really interesting to use that one. But of course, they can also use a type tool as well to start typing things as well. So let's see, I'm going to slide this away. And this is my type tool like this, and I can just start typing anywhere on this whiteboard widget. There's only there are exit tickets that gauge for understanding, but there are also exit tickets that kind of are looking for to see how your students are actually doing. So let me see if I can find one real quick. This one is also goal oriented, which is also a fun one, where students have to do self-assessment. Did they reach their goal? What will you do differently? What do you think this is? Why do you think this is? Also, all those kinds of things. It's a whiteboard widget here. And I was thinking, I also have this traffic light, which is also a fun one. Oh, the mood meter. This is the one I was looking for. So this is actually asking for your students how they feel, so you can get an understanding if they feel well about the lesson or just in general for their mental health. So they can use a line tool here to draw lines and say how they are feeling. So at this moment, I'm very happy. So I can draw this arrow right here, and then I can use a type tool to add everything here. And of course, there's the envelope right in the upper right corner. Students can just send it to their teachers. You will receive it in your reporting dashboard. So as far as the exit tickets go, you can use all these exit tickets. You will receive the link within the presentation. You can just click on it and you will come here. You can save this by selecting all the widgets and then duplicate the selected widgets and just put them somewhere in a folder where you know they are. So you can always go back to them and share them on your own terms in maybe Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, or any other LMS, or with a link. So that's the first one, an exit ticket to quickly make sure that you know if your students understand your lesson or not. The next one is the quiz, the worksheet, and split worksheet widget. It has a very nice function, and I think little people know about it, and it's the automatic feedback function. In the automatic feedback function, you will give your students feedback based on their score. So this means that students that are performing way better than students that are not will receive another feedback. And in this case, you can make sure that students that don't have that don't have good grades keep on trying to make sure that they really understand the learning materials, that they really get the skill level they need until they move on. It's also called mastery learning. I have an example right here. So the first time I'm opening this exercise, as a student, I'm not so sure of everything, so I'm just filling it out completely wrong. So instead of putting in the capitals, I'm putting in the countries. Like this. And I can move on. London. This is okay, but then this is wrong. And let's see, spaghetti, spaghetti, spaghetti. Let's make a mistake here. And also another mistake. Okay. And then when I click on show answers, yes, I get this feedback. So I get the feedback from the example widget. This is an example feedback. Oops, try again, check your textbook maybe, or go over the basics again in a widget where I link to. Click on the pencil in the upper right corner to edit your answers. So I also enabled a feature so my students can actually go take a look at everything I provided in the feedback, use that information to try and do better. So here I just click on this pen and I try to do better. So I click on it and I go back. So I start again, my first question, and now I see, I have to put in the capital cities. So Brussels, Paris, Rome, and I go on. This is like this. Like this. Now I can take a look at the answers again. Yes. And now I get another feedback. So the example feedback, which is good work, go to the next exercise, or you might also give a password. So the password for the next lesson is called capitals. So this means that in the next exercise you provide your students, you guide your students to the next exercise, there will be a startup password. So if students only reach this stage with a good score, they will get the password to move on and to build upon what they learned first. If they don't have the foundation, they don't have the basics, they will not be able to go further in the process. So it's really important that you just provide your students to go further if they know the lesson materials, if they have the skills to go on. Of course, as a teacher, you can add way more here. So this is just text, but you can add video, you can add audio, you can even add a meme or a GIF too. So this is the exercise. You can click on make a copy in my account. I am going to do that. You can do the same thing. So you have this widget right with you inside BookWidgets. Of course, if you don't do it now, you can do it later, no problem at all. So here I'm going to show you how you can create this feedback function. So the first thing I have to do is add my questions. And of course, they have to be created because we're going to provide feedback and the feedback is based upon a score. So it's very important that you add your questions and that there are grades, that there's a score behind it as well. The next thing I'm going to do is go to title and reporting. And in this case, I didn't enable submitting of answers because otherwise I would have gotten many answers now. But I think it's an important step to do to enable submitting of answers for you guys. Why? Because you will see how many students try to get to the feedback so they can move on. If a student submits an exercise 2, 3, 4 times, you know that they have been trying, but it doesn't work. Maybe you really need to give them personal instructions instead of just the automatic feedback. Then you will also see that students get the password for the next widget already after one try. So you immediately know where your students are at in your journey, in your lesson materials. Then the next step is going to general. Here you have to click on correction and scoring options. This is actually where the magic happens. The first thing what I want to do is show correct answers when the quiz is done. I want to disable this because I didn't do it here, but I want to disable this because I don't want that my students that get the feedback that they didn't do well, that they already get the right answers. So it's really interesting that you don't give the correct answers yet. They really have to try and look for the right answers based on the feedback you just gave. Then The next thing we're going to do is show, let's see, here, is allow editing. So always allow editing. So this means that when your students receive the feedback, then they see the pen in the upper right corner, so they can change their answers. So it wasn't well, so they have to click on the pen in the upper right corner, and they can change their answers for the better. If you don't enable this, students will only have a dustbin there, so they have to click on it and it will delete all their answers, and that's not what we want. And then the last thing here is, of course, our feedback rules. We're going to add feedback rules. So you can add 2 or more, but you have to add at least 2 feedback rules. The first rule I'm going to add is if the score is lower than or equal to 60%, this is a feedback that my students will get. You can see that you have lots of feedback options here, so you can even add instructional videos, you can upload audio recordings, and so on. You can also link to widgets as well for maybe some remediation or some basics that they have to go over again. Then I'm going to add another feedback rule, and that will be if the score is lower than or equal to 100%. So everyone with less than 100% or equal will get this message. And it sounds a little bit strange, but those 2 rules are working together. Because I already have another rule, this feedback will stop from the moment students have less than 60%. And then this feedback will take over. And here again, you're going to provide this feedback. You can guide them to the next exercise, or maybe give a startup password. A startup password you can add in your next widget. Where can you do that? Also in the general options, and you go to here, startup password, and then just put in capitals in capital letter as well, because it's also case insensitive. Okay, so that's about the automatic feedback feature. Let's go on. You can also use a web quest to create a full lesson in which students take a quiz, and then they're directed to a specific group or tab that contains exercises at their own level. I have an example right here. So in this case, this is a web quest, so a complete digital lesson about countries and nationalities. So there's just a lead in, then they have to continue to the movie. So what's your nationality? They have to take a look at the video. Then they go into the revision. So the vocabulary, you can see that in WebQuest, you can also add some different sections within a tab. So they're going through everything they need to learn here as well. And then they go to the exercises. This is an exercise everyone has to make. They just click on it and they have to make the exercise. And they can submit it to their teacher. Then they go back and go to the next exercise. And this is where the automatic feedback function is also integrated. So you can click here on the exercise. We are making the exercise, and at the end, my students will be guided to a color. So I'm going to make this. So it's actually a translation from Dutch capitals countries to English countries. And when I go back, I'm creating this test. Let's see. And when I go back or submit, I can see my score and I can see that I didn't do well. And in this, so what I have to do is I have to go over the basics again, and I have to go to purple. So I go back to the web quest. I continue to purple. This is my path. I have to watch this video with all the European capitals again. And then I have to fill out the crossword riddle with also, again, all the European countries and their capital. If I did that, then I can go maybe try again this exercise, make it better. And then I can also do this fun pair matching game, which is more my level, which I really need the previous information to complete this one. And then there's also a test and another exercise as well, the end. So it's a complete rehearsal exercise. You're going to give theory, we're going to rehearse, we're going to practice this, and based upon the skill level of your students and the performance, students are guided to some extra exercises on their own level. In the end, they will all have to pass the same test or practice test. So the extra exercises are really intended to make sure that every student passes the bar, as you say it. Okay. If you don't know how to create a web quest, in the presentation here, there's a webinar link. I explain everything here in 1 hour, how you can create a web quest like I just showed you right here. Then you can also create a planner widget. A planner widget is kind of a perfect way to give your students a real good structure, and you can give them a learning path to follow. And if they are done, you can also ask them to add some more exercises. So some students are already done, so they're doing nothing. So make sure that they keep on moving and they keep on, doing things that are very useful in the class instead of just doing nothing, of course. You click on the widget link and you have this nice planner widget. The first thing you see is the instructions. This is also something new in BookWidgets, where you can add instructions to give an explanation first, and then students can move on to the real intention of the widget. So you can see that there are some colors, a blue color on the card, which means will mean that there's some theory behind it. Purple colors are exercises or assignments. Green colors are exercises which are easy, orange, medium, and red are challenging. Then, of course, it says that you have to click on the plus to add some other exercises. In the beginning of this planner, I'm giving my students already some exercises to do. So they have to do them step by step. So they have to click here. They have to watch the video that's behind it. Going back. They have to watch the video that's behind it. They tick it off and they have to do some revision vocabulary. They tick it off, they're going to do some pronunciation exercise and so on. You can also see that you can add audio to your cards. So if you click on it, as a teacher, you can just record audio right inside this card. You don't have to use any other application to record audio. You can do it right away in BookWidgets.
Click on the image to open the exercise.
So you can just give instructions. So here, click on the image to open the exercise, and here they have to do the exercise. They go back and they can tick it off and do the next, and so on and so on. So it's a real clear structure learning path for your students. When they're done, it's said that they have to, so here it is.
Complete the exercise. At the end, you will be guided to another color. The color will indicate what kind of exercises you have to add to your learning path. To do this, you have to click on the plus in the upper right corner and pick out the right color.
So as you can see, this is again a quiz that is using the automatic feedback function based upon a score. So students will receive feedback here, then they have to click on the plus, and the feedback will say if they have to add an easy exercise, a medium exercise, or a hard exercise. So for example, I have orange, I can add orange. If this is easy for me, I can still add a red one as well. That's easy. And then I can make all the exercises and again, tick them off until I'm ready. So that's actually the learning path, the planner learning path. Again, here, we're doing a webinar about this as well. So it's also in the list for the webinar Wednesdays. Make sure to register for it. We don't have a recording yet because it's the first time we're going to give this in English. So make sure to register if you want to follow this one as well, to see how you can create a planner and how you can use it in your classroom. Another one here is that you can easily use pairs for students that are a little bit more behind, or that just require more time to think. And then we have a memory game, which is a little bit harder because they have to memorize all the cards. It will take more time for students that always are really quick in understanding. Just provide your students with one of those exercises, the easier ones for pair matching games, the harder ones you can give a memory game. So at the moment, it is still a little bit hard to transform a memory game or a pair matching game into a memory game or a pair matching game. This is going to change. So there will be, it's not there yet, but it will be there soon. So an extended import from widgets. Instead of only importing questions, you can also import the widgets inside each other, which is easier to transform them. Then another nice widget type to use is a randomness widget. This is kind of an underestimated widget, I guess. I think it's one of the most fun widgets we have because it's so easy, and you can do so much fun things with it. So you can add your wheels yourself. So students will be given 2 or 3 wheels, and if you add more wheels, it will be more challenging to your students. So let me show you. This is a first exercise, and this is actually a nice tip. This is a split worksheet. So on the side where you normally add your text, I embedded a widget. So you can also share a link. And in this case, I shared a randomness link. Here, we have questions. So the intention here is that students write a creative story using the emojis they get right here. So they spin the wheel and they have to write down the emojis, and then they have to write down their creative story. This one is a little bit easier than this one, because this one has a wheel extra, which is harder for students to find a creative story with a pig, a photo, a picture, an umbrella, and a tooth. So I don't know if you guys can make up a story with it, but you're gonna be very creative. And of course, the answers will be always fun. Okay. You can also create a word search, and inside a word search, you can also differentiate. You can make it harder and you can make it easier for your students. Let's take a look. Of course, I did it already. So in this case, a word search normally always has a word list with words students have to find. Those can be the exact same words, or those can be translations as well that students have to find in the grid. In this case, I managed to hide the word list, and here it's my intention that my students remember the previous lesson and know what we talked about, what is in the cell, the human cells, everything that's in it. They have to recall and find in the grid. So there's a membrane, there are some chromatin, I think it's also ribosomes, and so on. So this is also harder because they really have to recall it themselves. It's also called retrieval practice, if you're familiar with it. So they have to retrieve what they've learned right now. You can also ask your students to do this in pairs. So when they find a word, they have to explain the function of it to each other. And that's also a nice interactive lesson you're teaching. It's a fun game, but also very interactive and also didactical and pedagogical responsible. Another thing to differentiate in here is that you can see that everything here is horizontally, or vertical. But you can also make sure that students have to mark things backwards or diagonally. So it's also interesting. That also makes it really, really hard for students to find. And this is kind of a skill, I guess, instead of really having to, of really knowing where everything is. So sometimes you just can, or you cannot find things in here. Okay. This is something that's also new from a few, I think, a month ago or something. You can choose what kind of feedback you're returning to your students. So students that have some difficulties on your assignment, you can choose not to show the grades already, but give them a second chance to remake the assignment based upon your feedback. I'll show you in BookWidgets. So I have my reporting dashboard open right here. And let's say Lisa didn't do very well. So I can open her work and I can see that she has made some mistakes, maybe didn't learn that much, or maybe, kind of needs a second chance. I can choose what kind of feedback I will return. And I can do this for the complete group or for individual students. In this case, I'm just going to change the feedback view for Lisa. So normally, every student will get the grades. They will get the grades per question. They will see their wrong and right answers, and they will see the correction. In this case, when I click here on this little arrow, I can not show the total points, not show the points per question, and I'm also not showing the correct answers. So in this case, Lisa will get only her answers, and she will see that she has made quite a lot of mistakes. So I will return this to her, and I can also say to her here in the summarizing comment, take a look at this feedback. Make sure to do it over again. So make sure to kind of repeat the widget, make it over again and submit again. And then they can, submit again. So this is what you can say in the comments right here. When I close this, there's this, this mark behind Lisa, and this means that the student feedback view is different from the default. So Lisa will get another feedback than all my other students. All my other students will still get the normal feedback. And this is something you can configure right here in this, on this cogwheel, configure a student feedback view. If you change it here, it will be changed for the entire class, for all your students. So this is what all your students will see right now. And this is, and Lisa will have another one. You just select all the results and you, let's see, return all the results like this, and Lisa will get another feedback. Even if it doesn't say here anymore, she will get another feedback. Okay, that's return feedback. You can configure it for the entire class or individual students. Then there's also something new from yesterday. So we have a rubrics question type for both students and teachers, and you can ask your students to scale themselves as a self-assessment on the assignment. I have the example right here. So here students have to make this test, for example, and then in the last question, they have to think about how they did. So for example, I studied a lot for this test, more than 4 hours, but it didn't go very well. So she's a little bit concerned about the results and she needs extra exercises. And this is something that goes to the teacher. So this is just formatively, but it's interesting to know for differentiation for the teacher Afterwards, when students are submitting this, and let me show you again how this looks like. For example, Lucie, you can find it right here below in this question. As a teacher, you can still change this, but this is not the intention for this kind of rubric. So this kind of rubric is just a self-assessment, as it's on no grade, so it doesn't have any points. But this is really interesting for me as a teacher to see, okay, this student wants extra instructions. I will have to give it to her next day. Another tip here is taking a look at the question itself. If you click on the question, you can find all the rubrics, all the answers of your students on the rubric together, so you can see which students need extra exercises or extra help as well. You can find it right away here. And that's it for my part for now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and kind of give the word to Sheryl.
So Lucie, that was so much information. I'm so glad that this is recorded, because I think I might even go back and take a look at this again. So I think every time we come to a BookWidgets webinar, you always have something new for us. I love the rubric. So we're going to really take a little bit of a deeper dive into how we can differentiate our widgets. And we're going to start by talking about our students' learning needs. One of the things that I like to do as an educator is take the exact same widget and duplicate it with different options depending on my students' learning needs. And two of those that I want to highlight for you right now are the ability to record a question, so that the students could listen to a recording, as Lucie showed us in some of her widgets, and also add audio recording of instructions. Sometimes students have an educational plan that specifically says the teacher must read the instructions to the student. And if you have a class of 30 or 40 students and you have to read those instructions to 10 students, that could take a lot of time and be very distracting for the other students. So I'm going to show you here how we can add those audio recording instructions. In this instance, I chose flashcards. You'll see that I added flashcards instructions here. And this is something that Lucie showed us as well, how you can now add instructions to every activity. We have these instructions right here. And then what I have done is I have recorded the instructions for the students to listen to.
Let's practice our vocabulary words.
So if a student wanted to listen to the instructions or they needed to have those instructions read to them, they're right there. And then we can go ahead and click OK. And then let's talk more about what we can do with audio. Here's my flashcard. It's not just a static flashcard, however. You'll see my little speaker up here at the top. I can click on that.
Fish.
And it will tell me what the word
Fish.
is. And then I'm going to go ahead and click. And now I have the audio, the word, and the picture. And I can work my way through each of these activities with the audio, the word, and the picture. And of course, like Lucie said, we can always come back up here if we need to listen to the instructions again. And you'll see I've put a lot of variety here in this simple flashcard activity. I took a lot of those hints that Lucie talked about, adding emojis, adding the video, adding those visuals so that we keep our students engaged and we can really make sure that our students are busy working and happy and having those accommodations that they need. We're going to come right back and hop back into our activity here. And I want to show you this, allow text selection. A lot of our students need to have a screen reader. They may have a visual problem or something that they need to be able to read those directions out to them. And so I want to show you where that is. This is our quiz on European cities. And you'll notice when Lucie was working through her widget, she always started at the top and worked her way down. So of course we have our questions, our reporting, and we're going to come here to that general. We're going to come down here to general, And right here in the general is where you're going to find that differentiation for a student who would need a screen reader. I will tell you, for me, I always check this. For every single one of my widgets that I make, it's one of the first things that I do. I go to general and I allow that text selection. Sometimes, especially in the upper levels, students won't tell us if they have struggles seeing. And so I always have this available to them. Now you'll see that I talked about audio. Let's go right down below. And here is our audio. We can select for students who may have trouble clicking or swiping with a mouse that the audio plays automatically. So they don't have to worry about clicking or swiping. When you go from question to question, that's just one less click for a student. So that also might be something that you want to include here. And we'll go through these other options that we have here in general as we continue with our presentation today. But I really wanted to highlight those for you. I think that the text selection, the audio instructions, having engaging audio for your students is really a great way that you can differentiate different levels of learning for students. Also, we have a calculator, and providing a calculator is not just about doing the math. We also have students who have trouble with those numbers. So providing a calculator for them is really important. And then I want to talk a little bit about exam mode. So let's come back into our activity that we had on European capitals. And we're going to come back to our general. And right here in general is our calculator. I'm going to go ahead and add the calculator this time. I'm going to go ahead and use a scientific calculator. That scientific calculator is now enabled. Let's take a look at the preview. Well, where did the calculator go? Here it is, right up here in the upper right. I'm going to click on the calculator. Look at this. So no more, I left my calculator at home. The students have the calculator right here. My students were so tricky. They would try to slide a piece of paper with answers in the back of the calculator. So we have our calculator right here. As Lucie said earlier, everything contained in BookWidgets. Many of our students are easily distracted. And so one of the ways that we can support them in their learning and differentiate instruction is having everything together in BookWidgets for them. And then they can come right up here and click again, and the calculator will go away. So I love this idea of being able to incorporate and include everything directly inside BookWidgets. And then we have our exam mode. Now, my students sometimes get a little bit uncomfortable when I mention exam, but for me, exam mode is not just about having a test in their mind. For me, exam mode is also helping them understand this is how much time I want you to spend on this assignment. All the time I have students who will say to me, Mrs. Place, I spent 2.5 hours on that assignment, and my heart breaks a little bit because I think, oh, I only wanted them to spend 35 minutes on it. So sometimes I will come, now you'll notice I moved from general to title and reporting. So I will come to title and reporting, and then I will choose my exam mode. Now remember, it doesn't really have to be an exam. This is really just a timer that helps your students understand this is how much time my teacher wants me to spend on this assignment. Once again, totally customizable. So I'm going to take my exam mode and make it 30. And now you'll notice this additional differentiation option, allow reset when timer elapses. Sometimes students have an educational plan that allows them for extra time. Of course, extra time doesn't mean unlimited time. You could do a couple of things, duplicate your widget and choose a different amount of time here, or allow this checkoff box, allow the student themselves to reset the timer when time expires. Let's take a look, come up here to our preview and take a look at what that looks like. So right next to my calculator now, I have my countdown timer. And so my students can say, okay, I have 3 questions, I have 30 minutes, so I need to make sure that I don't spend longer than 10 minutes on each question. Now, when we have that option of allow the timer to reset, I want to caution you. If the student resets the timer, it also erases their answers. So you really want to think about whether or not you want to check or uncheck. Remember that Lucie allowed multiple submissions on an assessment? That might be the better way to go, where the student sees their correct answers and edits the incorrect answers. But here in BookWidgets, we're all about providing you options. And so we want to show you all of those different options that are available to you through exam mode or through resubmit your answers. Let's continue further talking about students' learning needs. One of the things that we can help students who are learning a language, whether it's English as a new language, English as a second or third language, or even as Lucie had in her widget, learning Dutch or French, we may or may not want to have a spell check on. I'm an English language arts teacher, and sometimes during an assessment, I really want to know, do my students know where the capital letters go? Do they know how to make these spelling words? So I may choose to turn automatic spelling on or off. And then, of course, we have different question types that we can use. But let's take a look at where that spell check will be, just in case you haven't seen that spell check before. I bet you already know. I'm going to click on General. I'm going to work my way down, and here is my spell check right above that automatic text selection, and I can choose to turn that on or off. Now, the spell check is based on the browser and the language of the browser. So if my students are English speakers, but they're taking French as a foreign language, the spell check will use the language of the browser, which for my students is English. So I wanted just to remind you, it's not a global spell check for everything, but the spell check will depend on the language, the default language of that browser. And then of course, there's your text selection right there for those screen readers. Now, when we talk about question types, there's so many ways that we can differentiate our instructions to make a worksheet, a quiz, an activity challenging or less challenging. And one of my favorite activities are the drag and drop. I want you to think about any drag and drop activities that you have created. Have you created drag and drop with a word bank? Having a word bank, is that easier or is that more challenging for your students? Have you created a drag and drop that has distractors so that the students can't use process of elimination if they're wondering about a question? So we can be really creative in the different ways that we can do drag and drop activities to customize our work. And then, of course, if you're using a learning management system, we have, of course, different ways that we can send work to our students. For example, in Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams, we can save an assignment as a draft and then select specifically which students we want to receive that assignment. That's really great for when you create those duplicate worksheets, duplicate split worksheets, or duplicate quizzes for your students. So I wanted to make sure that you're aware that across many of our learning management systems, not just Microsoft Teams and Google Classroom, but also Schoology and Blackboard, you can choose specifically what students you want to send which activities to. And for me, when my students look over at another student's paper and they see the same picture and they think they see the same task, they don't feel like, oh, I'm not smart, or Mrs. Place had to give me extra work. So let BookWidgets help you work smarter, not harder, and duplicate those quizzes and worksheets and use those differentiation accommodations in the general tab and in the question tab to really change the difficulty level of your activities. One of the things that I love is audio. I think that audio really helps our students focus and understand clearly. And I don't know about you, but sometimes my students don't read directions. So having that audio there really helps them focus and understand what they're going to need to do. So we have all of these activities that have audio in them. So we have our quizzes, our flashcards, even our memory and matching. And these, I'm going to show you a quick example here in memory and matching. This is a matching game. So the difference between memory and matching is in the matching game, everything is already for the students. Here, my students have to remember what they see, right? Oh, I didn't get a match here, so I have to try again. Here's my elephant. Oh, rabbit. I remember where rabbit is, and here it is. But did you notice that I have up here my speaker?
Rabbit. Rabbit.
And with my image.
Rabbit. Rabbit.
So my students have the image, the word, and that audio as well. And then I want to show you another accommodation for our students. Maybe you have students who are colorblind and they might not see this blue to know that they received a match for the word lion. But look, we have the symbols. And when you are setting up in your memory game and your matching game, you can select whether you want the correct answer to have the symbol, whether you want the correct answer to have the audio, and everything is right there for you. So these are just simple ways that you can accommodate your students in memory, flashcards, and matching. Let me show you this example here. I've included my directions as a pop-up, match the animal with the word. Once again, I have my audio for both my picture and my word. And you can see right away how this activity is a lot easier than my memory game. Everything is already exposed here. And so giraffe, I think, nope. Well, what is this? I can ask myself.
Tiger.
Oh, tiger. All right. Now I have my giraffe. And look, I have the color and the symbols to help me understand that I have everything ready to go. I love this jungle jumble. So we can use these audio functionalities across the board in all of these activities to really help us understand and help our students really do the best that they can do. I love using the audio functionality in the BookWidgets activities. And remember, the audio recorder is built in. You don't have to record on your computer and download the file and then find the file. Everything is there for you. Of course, video is also a great way that we can engage our students and meet the needs of our students. Here's an example of a split worksheet where my students are going to watch the worksheet and then watch the video and then complete that worksheet. We also have, for example, I love this activity here at the zoo where my students can go about and learn all about the zoo, even when I'm not with them, and they can click on those hotspots. And here in this instance, I have the hotspot with a video built in. Why is this so good? Because once I tell my students to leave BookWidgets and go watch a video somewhere else, they're distracted. When I have the video contained in here, my students are contained and they're not nearly as distracted as if I'm sending them somewhere else. For my students who are distracted easily, not having the inability to remember where did Mrs. Place tell me to go is also a great thing. So you have the video functionality built in with all of those widgets. And of course, don't forget your rich text editor. Your rich text editor as well allows you to add your video to other things as well. So the rich text editor is also great. Now let's talk about pace. We talked a little bit about how some students may need more time. You can adjust the pace through that exam mode, through adding audio and video, and especially if you're doing the video through BookWidgets, if each student has a device, they can watch that video at their own pace. If you're displaying the video, the students must go at the pace that you dictate as the teacher. So if you're lucky enough to have devices for your students or a mobile or a smartphone, the student can start and stop that video on their own and watch it at their own pace. They can pause it, rewind it, review it, and don't forget, students can add captions on most videos. So once again, if your students are learning a new language, having those captions is a really great way to continue to engage them. I love that Lucie talked to us about planners and web quests. I also think that planners, web quests, and checklists are a great way for you to allow students to progress through things at their own pace. I have students that I call my Pop-Tarts. They're the ones that hand is always popping up. I'm done. What else do I have to do? And then I have my bench warmers. They get stressed out because that Pop-Tart is ready to move on. Well, my bench warmers don't have to worry. They can take as much time as they want when I have a web quest. The web quest allows the students to progress through each activity on their own. And I wanted to highlight this World Health Day web quest because at BookWidgets, we are really about making your life easier. And we started posting in March Awareness Day web quests, Awareness Day activities for you to do. They're not all web quests, some are worksheets, some are quizzes. And we want you to take advantage of the work that we're doing for you. So if you were focusing on World Health Day, this web quest is ready for you to go. You'll see that we have the date included on our web quest and all of the information that the students need in the introduction. We have a checklist here, but it's not a checklist that the students will check off as Lucie showed us. I'll show you that in just a minute. And the students work their way through the web quest. And some of the students may want to play this video more than once. And so they have that available to them. They have a password so that they can go on. Here we have a widget embedded in our web quest, a reminder for them to make sure that they have the password so that they can progress to the next tab. We've have them organized here for our students who are easily distracted. Making sure that they're organized is really important for them. They can take a look at the videos again, find extra activities, and then the students can progress through that web quest on their own at their own pace. We also have a sample planner, and I love this planner. In this planner, students are going to check off their work one by one. Once again, I'm going to say I love the directions on these. So here my student has already brainstormed their activities, so they know that they're going to on to the next step. Now in this planner, the students must do everything that I have here. This is not a choice planner. My students are working through each activity. And look what I did. I embedded the widget from step 1 right here for the students to be able to take a look at. They have their whiteboard here, everything ready for them to go. They finish that step, they check it off, it goes gray, and now they can come back. Now, I want to let you know that it doesn't disappear forever. If the student wants to come back and review one of these topics, they can. So you see how BookWidgets, once again, allows you to totally customize what you're going to do with your students and allowing them to work at their own pace. Our goal here is that they get down to that last task. When they get to the last task, everything is checked off and they know that they have an awesome essay ready to grade. And notice once again, we have the little image here indicating there's more to do. Otherwise, we're just going to go ahead and check off our widget. But maybe we want a different kind of activity for our students. And in this activity, the planner is totally blank except for the instructions. Once again, We have
Click on the
embedded,
question mark icon for instructions.
we've embedded the directions for the students. We now know that I need to click on my question mark. I have all of my instructions here with exactly what I need to do. Ooh, I have to choose 2 different categories. So I'm going to keep that in mind. I have to make sure that I choose activities from 2 different categories. And remember, I'm going to come up to my plus, and from my plus, how do I know they're different categories? I've color coded them. So the students here can choose whatever 2 activities they want, place them in their planner to keep them on track. And in this planner, we embedded a checklist. Let's take a look at what that checklist is going to look like. In my checklist, I have, you always have the students who say, oh, wait, I forgot. Can I redo the activity? Here we have our checklist. Did I select 3 activities? Did I make sure to submit a reminder? You have to have 2 different categories, and we added the colors to help our visual learners. And then I checked all the boxes on my planner, not my here, but did I check all the boxes? Oh, I didn't check my bookworm. I didn't check letter to editor. Now I'm ready to go. So no more, I forgot, where is it? Can I try again? Everything ready for you in these 3 different ways to differentiate pace. So with the WebQuest, with our planner, and with our embedded checklist. And of course, you don't have to embed that checklist. You can use the checklist on your own. So when we think about our classroom, especially as we're coming back to face-to-face instruction, what are ways that we can change up learning preferences in the classroom while we're still integrating technology? Well, maybe you could use QR codes. I love using QR codes, and my students will scan a QR code depending on an activity level or a flashcard color that they got. So I know that I need to scan the QR code that's red, or I need to go to the blue corner and scan the QR code, which will guide the students on their mobile or smart device to a widget, a planner, or an activity. You can also let students decide how they want to learn or what they want to learn with a WebQuest or a hotspot. And once again, here is a choose your own story WebQuest, where it's like a choice board where the students can choose which activity they want to do. So it's not a forced activity for them. They can choose activity 1, task 1, or they can choose task 2. And this is a total choice board for the students. And then, of course, don't forget that book report widget that I just showed you, that digital book report widget, which is an empty planner, a choice board for students. I'm going to give you a little hint on choice boards. Sometimes I will put a challenge activity on the choice board, and I will have every student do that, or I'll do a easier activity to help them build confidence and have them do that. So you can have choice boards that are empty or choice boards that they can choose some of their own activities and must complete some of their others. And of course, knowing the learning preferences of our students is really important. Some of our students need to move every now and then. And so being able to spin that randomness wheel or use the crossword puzzle to really use their brain, different activities for different students based on their learning preferences. I love the random wheel too, like Lucie had. Here we have a French activity where they have to they have to go and get these things out loud, speak and practice. And so nobody can say to you, oh, you gave Lucie the easy fruit and you gave me an ananas, and I didn't know that that was pineapple. So we have just the random spinner here where the students will need to venture to the market and purchase the items that are available for them. We also have just a quiz worksheet, and look at how we have upped the challenge on this. So think about our memory game where students just had to match the picture and the word. Now I've taken and amped this up, little bit of drag and drop. I have to find the word and put it with the picture. And then I have to listen.
Öğrenene.
Oh my gosh, I was so lucky. I picked the right one. And I have to group them together. You'll notice, of course, that this is set up like a quiz with one question on each page so that the students don't become overwhelmed. This is another really great resource to use with your students. And then the students can go ahead and submit their work and see whether or not they are approaching that mastery level that we're looking for. We also have flashcards that we can use, which are a great way for our students to be able to study. And you'll see once again, this time we've added that audio for the students. So I really want you, I know sometimes it takes a while to create a widget, but I want you to think about creating a widget library that you can modify and use over and over and over again from year to year. So that hard work you do front loading and creating your widgets is really going to pay off for you as you're able to customize, duplicate, and change up those widgets. Now, here's something that maybe some of you don't know about, but one of the things that we can do is we can go and change what is called the dialogue or the localization of our widget. So let's go ahead and I'm going to hop into my widget here so that we can take a look at that. And here we have what is called localization. You'll see that my language is English, but have you ever pulled down this menu to see all of the different languages that BookWidgets supports? And we're constantly adding new languages. Just yesterday, the team had a meeting and we said, do we think we need to add this language or do we want to add this language? So this is constantly being updated. But do you see up here, I have my own language, my emoji language. As a teacher of students who are learning English for the first time and learning French for the first time, sometimes they get overwhelmed by the words. So what you can do is you can choose to put in emojis instead of words. So here for the quiz word, I put a thinking face. Anytime there's question, it has that visual question mark. And this is a really long list. I wouldn't expect you to go in and add all of these emojis at once. You can totally customize and differentiate what you want for your students. So we have different ways that we can support our students by just choosing this localization language. So how do I do that? I come right down here and I say, create new translation. And for me, I said, I want to use the emoji language instead of the English language. And now when my students come in, they can see here, instead of it saying question 1, they have that visual cue that, oh, this is a question that I need to think about. So just a different way that I can support my students. And this is a really good example of how I told you, duplicate your widgets. So you have one set of widgets with the emoji language and another set of widgets that has that English or French or whatever other language that you want to have there. So that's under that localization. Always you can use emojis in your widget titles. I think that's a great way to spark interest and have students engage in the screen. And it's also a great way for you as an educator to sort of have those small differences. So students who are struggling aren't like, oh, I'm always in the not smart group. They don't see those visual cues when they're working with a classmate or talking to them. Now, Lucie is going to go ahead and talk to you about some other accommodations that we can make. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share, Lucie.
Yes, Sheryl, that was great. Lots of information, but I think everyone is learning a lot today. Click on the link, log in with a single sign-on, a Google or Microsoft Teams account, like this, and then you will come inside this widget. It's just to measure the activity that you're in, to measure live activity, so I can show you how this works. You don't have to start creating the exercise yet. So please don't add anything in there yet. Just click on the first or the second link and log in using your Google account or your Microsoft Teams account, and then just stop for a little bit right there. So a little bit more about live widgets. So you can actually follow up your students when they're working on your assignments live from a distance on your computer. So at any moment that you are creating this exercise right now, I can see exactly what you are doing and I can use this for differentiation. So let's go and let's see where you can find this in your BookWidgets account. So I'm going to swipe right to my account, and here you can find the live tab. So I'm logged into my BookWidgets account. If I have an integration with Microsoft Teams or Google Classroom, Canvas, Moodle, all the other, Blackboard also, I can just go use the single sign-on there, log into my account, and click on live. This is where also, again, the magic happens. I can see activity, view activity from the past 7 days, but I can go up to 31 days to see older activity as well. Then, of course, I'm going to see if you're right inside my account. This is actually where I can find you guys, and I can see all my activities that were live. So students were opened the exercise and were in the exercise live in the past 7 days. And I can also see that less than a minute ago, this activity was live. And that's actually the activity you guys are in right now. So this is my live dashboard where I can see you guys that logged in. And this is the first thing that is really interesting for differentiation. So I can see if students are having trouble signing up or not. So there are some students that didn't sign up yet that are not in this list yet. So it might be that I have a problem, maybe I shared the wrong link, or maybe they are having troubles logging in. So then I can take a look at that as well. Then you guys can start making the exercise because I can see that you are all eager to start this. So you can start and I can explain a little bit more. You don't have to make it right. You can make some mistakes so I can differentiate, of course. So the first thing you can see is all the colors. So for each question, we kind of color code the question. So if it's completely right, it will be green. It's completely wrong, it will be red. And then of course you have the orange one from anything in between. So I can immediately see that someone already finished and there were still students that didn't start this exercise yet. So this means that Orla here already is finished, so she's doing nothing at this exact moment. So I will have to guide her to some more challenging exercises, and certainly some more challenging exercises because she has a 16 out of 16, so it's perfectly done. So I will have to help them. Then I can see here, I can click on example account. Here it is, where I can follow this account step by step. So anything that this person is doing, so if he's moving, if she's moving to another account, another question, I can see that she's moving to another question. So I'm asking him or she to do it, and then I can show you live how you can see the changes. But I guess maybe it's interesting to take another one. So I'll click on Katrina, and again, I can see that Katrina is still working on the last one. And if she answers this and it's done, I can see it move live as well. So I can see this live inside the student. So I can just click on it and see what is going up, what is here interesting. Another thing I can see is maybe kind of sort on the score. So I can see here that Ayan is having some troubles. So I can click, which she hasn't started yet, but here Frederick, for example, Frederick, now it's moving. I have to catch it. Here it is. Frederick, made some mistakes. So I can just see that instead of adding the capital cities here, he added the countries. So I can just go up to Frederick and say to him, oh, make sure to read the assignment, the instructions very well, and maybe change your answers if you would like. And then again, I can also here provide him with some tips and differentiate in that manner. Okay, that is one thing. Another thing, what you can learn from this live widgets view is the fact, for example, the students that are behind in this case, students that are already up, so you can make sure to help them out. And sometimes when you assign a widget, you're going to, the next day you're going to a student and you say, you didn't make your homework. And that student says, but I did. And then who's right? You don't know. Then make sure to go to live widgets. And for example, let's see the example account here, Katerina. So I could say Katerina didn't make her homework because, but then I go to live widgets and then I can see, oh, but she did make her homework because she filled out all the questions, but she forgot to do one thing. And I can see it right here because all the others, almost all the others, they submitted it. And Katrina, thank you. Now I can say to Katrina, oh, but you just have to click the submit button and I will receive your work. So in that case, I can really see if my students did something or not. If the student is not even in the list, this means that she or he didn't open the exercise, or she's in the list, they opened all the exercise, but they didn't continue to make it. So they didn't complete the exercise, which of course means that they didn't make it. So you can make your conclusions right there. You can also follow up live the questions by question by question. Click on the question right below, and then you can see everything move live for each student in this long list. Click on the arrow to just jump to another question. Okay, that is it for the worksheet. I have one more link to share with you, also to show something in live widgets. It's another widget type. And I think it's also very fun to use this in your classroom. The first link I'm going to share is again for teachers with a Google account. That's it. And then the second one is one for teachers with a Microsoft Teams account. If you don't have an account, then just make sure to check my screen. I'm going to live widgets and I'm checking here 1 minute ago. I can see all my students coming in. So the widget itself is actually an exit slip where they have to indicate I'm going to show you the widget itself. Here it is. So this is the widget. So did you understand today's lesson? And you have to add a question here if you still have one. And this you can follow up live as well. And you can see that the emojis, instead of showing the emoji itself in live widgets, I can see the colors. So a happy emoji will translate in a green color. A neutral emoji will translate in an orange color, and an unhappy one will translate in a red color. And this is really interesting for differentiating again. So you can maybe change some colors, then I can differentiate, then I can show it again. Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do here is the next lesson, I'm going to take my green students or one of my green students, and I'm going to ask them to explain it to Mr. Example here. And then I'm going to take the red students together to me, and I'm going to give them extra instructions because they're completely stuck. They don't know what they have to do. So here it's very necessary to give them more instructions. I can also see here what my students think, if they might have some answers. And all of this is without my students having to submit this widget. So even if this is a short activity, after each lesson, you immediately know where your students at if there's something coming up here in the answer of your students, you can use this for your next lesson and maybe explain something that is coming up often. Then another thing to use here is use this widget as a panic button. So in this case, every widget works on a smartphone as well. So your students are working in the classroom. This may be digitally, or this may also be just on paper. Of course, not everything needs to be BookWidgets, but you're just having your students work on an assignment in your classroom. Then on their smartphones, they have this widget ready. So they have it ready on their smartphone. And what you're asking them to do is put them on a happy face. As long as they're working, everyone starts with a happy face. Then you can see it in your live widgets, everyone is happy. The next thing you're going to do is say that if you have a question, but you can still work on to a next question, and then we can come back later to where you're stuck, then you put it on orange. So this means that everything here, for some students, there will be some orange fields. If a student is completely stuck, he puts his emoji on an unhappy face, which will show red in your live widget, which means that those students come first. So you go to those students first so they can move on because they're entirely stuck. So they need some more instructions to move on. If they are helped again, so if they can move on, they put it on a green face again. So, and this is kind of a going of colors here, and then you can just interact with your classroom. It's a circular trajectory that you can do here with your students. Okay, and I think that is what I wanted to show about live widgets. One more thing that's really important is that live widgets only works if you have an integration. So if you're using BookWidgets inside Google Classroom, inside Microsoft Teams, inside Moodle, Schoology, Canvas, let me see, Blackboard, those are the biggest ones. I don't know if I'm forgetting someone, It's Learning. I think those are the biggest ones. Only if you're using BookWidgets inside an integration inside a learning management system, you can use it, because we take all the student names from that system, because in BookWidgets, we don't hold students' names or data. So it's really important that you know that this will only work with an integration. But of course, Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, they have free versions. So it's interesting to take a look at it, because this is a very powerful tool to differentiate. And I'm going to stop sharing, and no, I'm going to keep on sharing, but I'm going to pass the word to Sheryl.
Thank you so much, Lucie. I really appreciate it. So I really love how you showed that panic button. I think that a lot of teachers will really find that that's so useful. We want to remind you as we finish up today that we have lots of extra tips and ways to help you. Don't forget that we have our webinars that are available. And I saw that somebody posted on their exit slip, Lucie, about equations and chemical reactions. I really want to highlight that we have a science webinar coming up that I think will be really useful for the teacher who asked about that. We also have our Facebook group, Teaching with BookWidgets. Come join us. It's where we post our Awareness Day widgets. We answer questions. You can post questions there, and we can have conversations, as well as support at bookwidgets.com. But we are all about keeping you inside BookWidgets, so don't forget that you can navigate on your BookWidgets dashboard to My Groups, and then scroll down to the bottom and discover groups. When I was a BookWidgets ambassador, I was really looking for some French activities. So I just typed in French, and I had all sorts of groups that were available to me. You can request to join a group if the group is private, and then the administrator of the group will let you in. We also have Teaching English, which is a wonderful group filled with all sorts of resources, and a shameless plug for our world language webinar that's coming up. And then, of course, our BookWidgets blog. We have all sorts of activities, helpful hints for you. My colleague Dimitri just posted an absolutely incredible blog post on taking field trips, both in-person and virtual field trips, and highlighted some really great places to go around the world, in the United States and in France. So check out the BookWidgets blog and subscribe to it so that it comes directly into your inbox and you can choose to read it at your leisure. So we're here to support you. Our colleague, I also see our colleague Frederick here, who mans the support desk. So you can see that even after hours, we're working hard, presenting these webinars to you, and the team is here available to you, of course, during your work hours.